Dr. Ju Park brushed dust from the cylindrical object, her gloved fingers trembling slightly. After 3 weeks of excavation on the abandoned planet, her team had found little of interest until now. Just another piece of junk, muttered Tae-yun, her research assistant, already turning away. Wait, Ju said, noticing a faint pulse of energy when her hand passed over strange markings etched into the corroded metal. There's something different about this one. Hyunbin, the team leader, frowned. We don't have time for hunches, Dr. Park. We leave in 2 days. Then I'll work through the night, she replied, carefully placing the cylinder in her sample container. The subtle vibration against her palm told her this was far more than space debris. The sun set quickly on this small planet, casting long shadows across the dig site. The research team packed up their equipment, but Ju lingered, her eyes fixed on the container holding her discovery. Something about the object called to her in a way she couldn't explain. That night, while the others slept, Ju set up a small workstation in her tent. She placed the cylinder under a portable scanner and watched as data flowed across her screen. The metal appeared ordinary at first glance, a mix of common elements, but its internal structure was unlike anything she had seen before. That can't be right, she whispered, running the scan again. The object seemed to contain microscopic chambers and channels, almost like a complex machine. Ju reached for the cylinder, hesitating for just a moment before picking it up. It felt warmer than before, and the strange markings glowed faintly in the dim light of her tent. She traced them with her finger, trying to understand their meaning. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Minseo, the team's youngest member, poked her head through the tent flap. You should sleep, Dr. Park, she said, her eyes widening when she noticed the glowing object. Is that? Just running some tests, Ju said quickly, covering the cylinder with a cloth. Nothing important. Minseo didn't look convinced, but nodded and left. Ju waited until she was sure the young woman had gone, then uncovered the cylinder again. The glow had dimmed, as if the object was hiding. You're playing games with me, Ju said softly, smiling despite herself. The next morning, she joined the team for breakfast with dark circles under her eyes, but excitement bubbling within her. She wanted to share her findings, but something held her back. Hyunbin was focused on meeting deadlines, and the others might not understand the significance of what she had found. You look terrible, Tae-yun said, handing her a cup of coffee. Did your piece of junk keep you up all night? Ju took a sip before answering. I think we need to take it back to Earth for further study. We're taking lots of samples back, Hyunbin said without looking up from his tablet. Tag it and add it to the collection. Ju bit her lip. I think this one deserves special attention. The energy readings air. Every scientist thinks their discovery is special. Hyunbin cut in. Process it like everything else. Anger flashed through Ju, but she pushed it down. She knew arguing would get her nowhere. Instead, she nodded and finished her coffee in silence. That day, as the team made final preparations to leave the planet, Ju kept the cylinder with her. She recorded its measurements, took photos, and noted the pattern of its markings, all while feeling its strange warmth against her skin whenever she touched it. By evening, the research vessel was loaded and ready for departure. Ju carried the cylinder aboard personally, ignoring the curious looks from her colleagues. In the ship's lab, she secured it in a special container designed for potentially hazardous materials, not because she thought it was dangerous, but because it would ensure no one else would open it during the journey home. As the ship lifted off, leaving the dusty planet behind, Ju stood at a window watching the landscape shrink beneath them. She felt a strange mix of excitement and dread, as if she had set something important in motion, but didn't know what. Back in the lab, Ju isolated herself from the others. She connected the container to a more powerful scanner and began a detailed analysis of the cylinder. Hours passed as she worked, forgetting about meals and sleep. The first breakthrough came when she noticed patterns in the markings. They weren't random decorations but a form of writing. She fed the images into the ship's computer, comparing them with known languages from across the galaxy. To her shock, the computer found matches, not with alien languages, but with ancient Sumerian cuneiform from Earth. The similarity was too strong to be coincidence. "How is this possible?" she whispered. Earth was thousands of light years from this planet. No known civilization had traveled between the two worlds in ancient times. Juwoo's hands shook as she typed commands into the computer, searching for more connections. The screen filled with comparisons between the cylinder's markings and various Earth writings. The matches weren't perfect, but they were significant. A knock on the lab door startled her. She quickly minimized the screen before calling. "Come in." It was Mincio again, carrying a tray of food. "You missed dinner. Again." "Thank you," Juwoo said, suddenly realizing how hungry she was. "I lost track of time." Mincio set down the tray and glanced at the container holding the cylinder. "Is that the same object from yesterday? What's so special about it?" Juwoo hesitated, then decided to trust the young woman. "Look at this," she said, bringing up the language comparisons on the screen. Mincio's eyes widened. "That's impossible." "I know, but the evidence is right here." Juwoo opened the container and carefully removed the cylinder. "And there's something else. Watch." She held the object in her palm. As if responding to her touch, the markings began to glow more brightly, and a gentle hum filled the lab. "It's reacting to you," Mincio whispered in awe. "Not just to me," Juwoo said. "It seems to react to human touch. Here, try." She handed the cylinder to Mincio, who took it nervously. The glow dimmed for a moment, then grew even brighter than before. "What does it mean?" Mincio asked, her voice barely audible over the increased humming. Juwoo shook her head. "I don't know yet, but I think this might be the most important discovery of our lifetime." The cylinder's energy readings continued to rise, and the two women watched in silent wonder as the ancient object revealed itself to be far more than a rusty relic from a forgotten world. The proximity alarms blared 3 days into their return journey. Juwoo rushed to the bridge where Hyunbin stood frozen before the view screen. 7 vessels, he said quietly. "Nothing in our databases matches their configuration." The communication system crackled. A deep voice spoke in halting standard. "Human ship, you possess sacred relic. Return immediately." Doyoon, their pilot, glanced nervously at Hyunbin. "What are they talking about?" Juwoo's blood ran cold. "The cylinder," she said. "It must be what they want." The alien commander identified his people as the Vax-Ful, ancient guardians of the weapon of judgment. When Hyunbin attempted to negotiate, the aliens' patience evaporated. Final warning: surrender relic or be destroyed. In that desperate moment, Juwoo stepped forward. "I can activate it," she claimed boldly. "I've translated parts of its code." The communication went silent. Then, "You will come aboard. Now." The bridge crew stared at Juwoo in shock. She had not shared her recent discoveries with anyone except Mincio. "What are you doing?" Hyunbin hissed. "You can't go on their ship." "And we can't give them the cylinder," Juwoo replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Not until we understand what it is." Through the view screen, they watched as one of the alien vessels moved closer. It dwarfed their research ship, its dark hull covered in patterns similar to those on the cylinder. "We're being scanned," Doyoon reported, her fingers dancing over the controls. "They're looking for the relic." Juwoo turned to Hyunbin. "I need to get the cylinder. If I'm going over there, I need to show them I have it." Hyunbin grabbed her arm. "This is madness. We should just give it to them and hope they let us go." "And if it really is a weapon?" Juwoo pulled away. "What if they use it against Earth or other human colonies?" Before Hyunbin could respond, Mincio rushed onto the bridge. "The cylinder, it's changing." They all ran to the lab. The container they had locked the cylinder in was vibrating, its seals starting to fail. Juwu pressed her hand against the container's surface and felt intense heat. "Open it," she ordered. "That's against safety protocols," Hyunbin objected. "Open it now, or it might break through on its own." With reluctance, Hyunbin entered the code to release the locks. The container hissed open, revealing the cylinder floating inches above its base, glowing with blue-white light. "It's responding to their presence," Juwu whispered. The markings on its surface shifted and changed, as if rewriting themselves. Juwu nodded, hoping she hadn't just made a terrible mistake. The cylinder hummed in her hands, as if encouraging her. Somehow, she felt that this ancient object was more than a weapon, and it had chosen her for a reason. The Vaxful commander, Kato, towered over Juwu, his scaled skin gleaming under harsh lights. The cylinder lay between them on a ceremonial platform. "Generations of our finest minds failed to awaken it," Kato said. "You claim success in days." Juwu continued translating the symbols as she spoke, understanding growing with each moment. "It wasn't built by your people, was it?" Kato's eyes narrowed. "The ancients created it for us to wield when worthy." According to the text, the device required a specific neural pattern to activate, not a code or password, but a particular way of thinking. For centuries, the Vaxful had tried brute force methods. When Juwu touched the cylinder while contemplating its purpose, something unexpected happened. The device hummed, its surface growing warm. "Impossible," Kato hissed. The cylinder rose slightly, hovering above the platform as light began to pulse from within. Juwu stood in the sacred chamber of the Vaxful mothership, surrounded by their priests and scientists. Hyunbin remained at her side, his face tense with worry. The Vaxful had given her 12 hours to activate the device, and 6 had already passed. "Tell me about the ancients," Juwu said, trying to keep her voice steady. "What do your records say about them?" Kato paced around the platform, his clawed hands clasped behind his back. "They visited us when we were young as a species. They told our ancestors they would return when we were ready for their gifts. And the cylinder was their gift. One of many promised," Kato replied. "But they never returned. We found the cylinder in the ruins of their outpost." Juwu studied the markings that spiraled around the device. With each hour spent in its presence, their meaning became clearer to her. It was as if the cylinder itself was teaching her to understand. "These symbols speak of a test," she said slowly, "not a weapon." Kato stopped pacing. "You lie. Our texts clearly describe the judgment." "May I see these texts?" Juwu asked. After a moment of hesitation, Kato nodded to one of his priests. The elderly Vaxful brought forward a tablet-like device and handed it to Juwu. The screen showed images of markings similar to those on the cylinder, with Vaxful translations beside them. Juwu compared them carefully, her eyes moving between the tablet and the cylinder. "Your translations are wrong," she said finally. "This word you've interpreted as destruction actually means transformation. And this one isn't enemy but potential." Kato snatched the tablet from her hands. "You know nothing of our language." "No," Juwu agreed. "But I've been studying linguistics all my life. And there's something else. These markings respond to my thoughts." To demonstrate, she placed her hands on the cylinder and closed her eyes. She thought about understanding, about discovering truth, about connecting with something ancient and wise. The cylinder's hum deepened, and the markings began to shift color, from blue to a soft gold. "What are you doing to it?" one of the priests asked, stepping forward in alarm. "I'm not doing anything to it," Juwu replied. "I'm letting it do something to me." She felt a gentle presence touch her mind, like a question being asked. "Without words," she answered, "I want to understand." The cylinder's light pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. "She's communicating with it," Hyunbin whispered, awe in his voice. Kato pushed him aside and reached for the cylinder. Enough of this deception. As his scaled hand touched the surface, the cylinder's light flickered and dimmed. The humming became discordant, almost painful to hear. It rejects you, Ju said softly, because you seek to control it, not understand it. Kato's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in what might have been frustration or anger. Our finest minds have studied it for generations. What could a human possibly understand that we don't? Ju thought carefully before answering. The cylinder felt warm under her fingers, encouraging her. Maybe it's not about intelligence, she suggested. Maybe it's about intention. What do you plan to do with the device once it's activated? Restore order to the galaxy, Kato replied immediately. Remove threats to our expansion. Judge those unworthy of sharing the stars with us. Ju nodded slowly. And there's your answer. The cylinder doesn't respond to thoughts of control or domination. She placed both hands on the device again, thinking of discovery, of sharing knowledge, of different species learning from each other. The cylinder's light grew brighter, its hum more harmonious. Impossible, Kato whispered again, but with less certainty. One of the Vaxthal scientists moved closer, his scales a paler blue than the others. Commander, what if she's right? Our ancestors' texts do mention that the ancients valued harmony. Silence, Jiho. Kato snapped. The human deceives us. Jiho bowed his head but continued speaking. We have tried force for centuries without success. Perhaps we should consider another approach. Ju gave the scientist a grateful look. May I try something? With your permission. Kato glared at her, but finally nodded. You have 4 hours remaining. Try what you wish. Ju turned to Hyunbin. I need you to help me. Put your hands on the cylinder too. Hyunbin hesitated. What am I supposed to do? Think about why we explore, she said. Why we study other cultures, why we search for knowledge. He placed his hands beside hers on the cylinder. The device's light flickered briefly, then stabilized, growing even brighter. It responds to both of you, Ju observed, moving closer despite Kato's warning glare. It responds to our thoughts, Ju corrected, to our intentions. She looked at the Vaxthal scientist. Would you like to try? Kato stepped between them. This test was for you alone, human. But what if it's not meant for just one species? Ju challenged. What if the ancients wanted to find beings who could work together, who could share rather than dominate? The cylinder's light pulsed more rapidly, as if in agreement. Let Jiho try, Hyunbin suggested. What harm could it do? After a tense moment, Kato stepped aside. Proceed. Jiho approached cautiously and placed one hand on the cylinder next to Ju's. She smiled encouragingly at him. Think about what you hope to learn from the ancients, she suggested. Not what power you want to gain, but what wisdom. The Vaxthal scientist closed all 4 of his eyes, his scales shifting to a deeper blue as he concentrated. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the cylinder began to rise from the platform, hovering a foot in the air. It's working, Hyunbin exclaimed. The cylinder rotated slowly, its markings flowing and changing like liquid metal. The light emanating from it bathed the chamber in a golden glow. Kato stared in disbelief. What is happening? I think, Ju said slowly, it's recognizing compatible minds. Minds that seek understanding rather than control. The cylinder continued to rise, spinning faster. Suddenly, it emitted a pulse of energy that passed harmlessly through everyone in the room. Where the energy touched, it left a momentary afterimage, like a photograph of their nervous systems. It's scanning us, Jiho said, wonder in his voice. Another pulse followed, stronger this time. Ju felt a presence in her mind, stronger than before. It wasn't invasive, but curious, like a child asking questions. Can you all feel that? She asked. Hyunbin nodded, but Kato stepped back, his scales darkening with fear. It speaks to me, Jiho whispered, not in words, but in understanding. The cylinder began to transform, its surface flowing and reshaping itself. It expanded, becoming larger and more complex, until it resembled a small pillar covered in intricate patterns. This is just the beginning, Ju realized. watching in awe. It wasn't a weapon at all. It was waiting for the right minds to unlock its true purpose. The pillar's light focused into a beam that projected a holographic image in the center of the chamber, a map of stars, galaxies, and connecting paths between them. The knowledge of the ancients, Geo breathed. Cato stepped forward again, his fear giving way to wonder. All this time, we misunderstood. Jiwoo nodded, watching as the map expanded to show more of the universe. The cylinder wasn't meant to judge or destroy, it was meant to connect. A holographic figure materialized, humanoid but clearly not human, with elongated features and six-fingered hands. It spoke in a language that somehow translated directly in their minds. We were the Jansun. We seeded life across galaxies to discover which species would evolve both intelligence and compassion. Cato fell to his knees. The weapon is activating. Not a weapon, corrected the hologram. A test. The Jansun had created thousands of potential civilizations, then left devices to monitor their development. Only beings with both technological prowess and empathetic understanding could activate them. The Vaxthul achieved great technological advancement, the message continued, but prioritized domination over cooperation. Jiwoo understood then. The device had responded to her curiosity and desire to understand, not to control. Humanity, though younger, has demonstrated the balanced development we sought. The sacred chamber fell silent as everyone stared at the glowing figure. The hologram stood nearly 10 feet tall, its body thin and graceful, draped in flowing garments that seemed to move with an unfelt breeze. Its face was kind but alien, with large eyes that contained swirling galaxies within them. "This cannot be," Cato whispered, still on his knees. The ancient texts were misinterpreted, the Jansun figure said gently, as messages often are across the vast distances of time. Jiwoo stepped closer to the hologram, drawn by a sense of recognition she couldn't explain. "You created us, humans and Vaxthul. We created the conditions for you to emerge," the figure corrected. "We planted the seeds, but you grew yourselves." The hologram raised its six-fingered hands, and the chamber transformed around them. They stood now in what appeared to be space itself, stars and galaxies swirling around them. Tiny points of light glowed in different colors across this cosmic map. "Each light represents a world where we planted life," the Jansun explained. "Over billions of years, we watched and waited to see which would develop not just intelligence, but wisdom." Hyunbin pointed to a small blue-green dot. "Is that Earth?" The hologram nodded. "Your world is young, but promising." It turned to face the Vaxthul. "Your world is older. You achieved spaceflight thousands of years before humans. Your technology surpassed even some of our early achievements." Cato's scales rippled with pride. But the Jansun continued. "You stalled. Your society turned inward, focused on domination rather than cooperation. You conquered rather than connected." The hologram waved a hand, and they saw images of Vaxthul history. Great ships conquering worlds, resources stripped from planets, species subjugated or eliminated. Cato rose to his feet, his scales darkening. "We brought order to chaos. We elevated lesser species." "Did you?" the Jansun asked simply. More images appeared, dying worlds, extinct species, the slow decline of Vaxthul culture as it consumed rather than created. Jiho stepped forward. "It's true," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Our expansion stopped centuries ago. Our greatest scientists now work only on weapons, not discovery." "Traitor," Cato hissed. "Truth-teller," the Jansun corrected. The hologram turned to face Jiwoo. "When your ship found our device, it recognized potential in you. It has been scanning and testing you since first contact." Jiwoo remembered the subtle vibrations, the warmth, the way the markings seemed to teach her their meaning. It was learning about us. Learning and teaching simultaneously, the Jansun confirmed. The device seeks minds that can balance analysis with empathy, curiosity with caution. The starfield around them shifted, focusing now on Earth. They watched as humans evolved, built civilizations, fought wars, but also created art, music, literature. They saw humans reach out to the stars, not to conquer but to explore. "You are not perfect," the Jansun said. "Your species has much to learn. But you possess the essential balance we sought, the ability to advance technologically while maintaining connection to each other and your world." Cato stepped forward, his posture rigid. What of the judgment, the power promised to the worthy? The hologram regarded him with those galaxy-filled eyes. The judgment was never about destruction. It was about selection, choosing which species were ready for the next step. "Which is what?" Hyunbin asked. "Inheritance," the Jansun said simply. The stars around them faded, replaced by images of technology beyond their understanding. Ships that could cross galaxies in moments, worlds transformed from barren rock to paradise, energy sources that seemed to create something from nothing. "We are gone now," the hologram continued. "Our physical forms expired millions of your years ago. We exist only as these recorded messages, these tests, these gifts left for those who would follow us." Juwu felt tears in her eyes. "You're extinct. All species have their time," the Jansun said with gentle acceptance. "But knowledge can outlive its creators. We seeded the galaxy with life in hopes that someday others would reach the level of development where they could carry our knowledge forward." The hologram turned to face both humans and Vaxfall. "This is the true test, not whether you can activate a device, but whether you can use knowledge wisely." Cato's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "Then the power is real. You will share it with us." "Not with the Vaxfall alone," the Jansun corrected. "Not with humans alone. With both, together." Silence filled the chamber as everyone absorbed these words. "Impossible," Cato said finally. "We cannot share power with lesser beings." Jiho stepped forward. "Commander, perhaps this is why we have stagnated. We refuse to consider that other perspectives might have value." Juwu looked at the Vaxfall scientist, seeing him in a new light. "Your people have centuries more experience than us. We could learn so much from you." "And what could we possibly learn from humans?" Cato demanded. The Jansun hologram answered. "Renewal, adaptation, the ability to change course when a path leads to destruction." It waved a hand again, and they saw Earth's history of environmental damage followed by restoration, of wars followed by peace efforts, of mistakes recognized and corrected. "Not always successfully," Hyunbin admitted. "We've nearly destroyed ourselves more than once." "But you recognize the precipice," the Jansun said. "That recognition is rare among evolving species." The hologram grew brighter, its voice more urgent. "Now you must choose. The device contains all our accumulated knowledge, science, philosophy, history spanning billions of years. But it will only activate fully for those who agree to share this inheritance, to use it for creation rather than destruction." Cato turned to his fellow Vaxfall, his scales shifting colors as he struggled with this decision. "Our ancestors searched for this power for generations. Are we to simply share it, or lose it entirely?" the Jansun said. "The device has made its assessment. It will not activate for the Vaxfall alone." Juwu stepped toward Cato, her hand extended. "Perhaps this is the final test, whether different species can work together when given the greatest of gifts. Or the greatest of weapons," Cato said quietly. "That choice," the Jansun noted, "is precisely what the device is measuring." Jiho moved to stand beside Juwu. "Commander, I believe this is the path forward. Our expansion ended centuries ago because we exhausted what could be taken. Perhaps now we must learn what can be shared." For a long moment, Cato stood motionless, his ancient pride warring with the truth before him. The other Vaxfall watched silently, waiting for his decision. Finally, he turned to Juwu. "If we agree to this alliance, what guarantees do we have that humans will honor it?" "None," Juwu answered honestly. just as we have no guarantee about you. That's what trust means, moving forward without certainty. The Jansun hologram observed them, those galaxy eyes taking in every reaction, every subtle shift in posture and expression. The choice must be made, it said. The device awaits your decision. Cato looked from the hologram to Jiwu, then to his own people. Centuries of tradition and belief hung in the balance. The promised power of the ancients was within reach, but not in the form they had expected. "We will," he began, then paused, the weight of history heavy on his shoulders. "We will consider your proposal." The Jansun nodded. "Consider quickly. Some choices cannot wait forever." As if to emphasize this point, the hologram flickered slightly, reminding them all that even the most advanced technology had its limits. The truth was revealed, not a weapon to destroy, but knowledge to create. Not power for one species, but partnership for many. The real test had just begun. The cylinder transformed, expanding into a complex device that projected star maps and technical schematics beyond human understanding. "Our knowledge is now yours," the hologram stated. "Use it wisely." Cato lunged for the device. "This power belongs to the Vaxful." He signaled his ship, ordering them to target Earth's coordinates. Without thinking, Jiwu placed her hand on the device, wishing only to protect her home. Energy surged outward in concentric rings, washing over the Vaxful ships. Their weapon systems went offline instantly, though life support remained functional. "Incredible," Hyunbin whispered as they watched from a monitor. "Non-lethal but absolute neutralization." The hologram addressed Jiwu once more. "Humanity is now designated caretaker of developing species. Guard them until they are ready to join you." Months later, as Earth governments debated the implications of the Jansun legacy, Jiwu often reflected on the irony. What had appeared to be a rusty relic had changed humanity's place in the universe forever. Their greatest weapon in the cosmos had turned out to be not their technology, but their capacity for understanding and empathy. What the Vaxful had sought as a doomsday device was actually the key to creation itself. Time seemed to freeze as Cato's clawed hand reached for the transformed cylinder. His scales had darkened to almost black, his 4 eyes narrowed with determination. The other Vaxful in the chamber stood motionless, some with expressions of shock, others with growing anger. "Commander, no," Joe cried, but it was too late. Cato's fingers touched the glowing surface of the device. At the same moment, his voice boomed through the ship's communication system. "Target the human homeworld. Prepare main weapons." Jiwu acted without thinking. She lunged forward, placing her palm flat against the cylinder. Her mind filled with a single desperate thought. "I must protect Earth." The device pulsed once, twice, 3 times, each pulse brighter than the last. The Jansun hologram watched silently as waves of golden energy expanded outward from the cylinder, passing through the walls of the chamber as if they weren't there. On the monitor showing the space around them, they watched as the energy waves washed over the Vaxful fleet. One by one, the ships went dark, then their emergency lights flickered on. "What have you done?" Cato demanded, his voice shaking with rage. Jiwu stepped back from the device, surprised by what had happened. "I don't know. I just wanted to stop you." The ship's communication system crackled. "Commander, weapons systems are offline. Engine control is offline. Life support and basic functions remain operational." Similar reports came in from the other ships. None were damaged, but none could fight or flee. "The device responded to your intent," the Jansun hologram explained. "Not to destroy, but to neutralize threat. This confirms our assessment." Hyunbin stared at the monitor in wonder. "You disabled an entire fleet with a thought." The Jansun turned its galaxy-filled eyes to Cato. "You have proven our point, Commander. Given access to advanced technology, your first instinct was dominance through destruction." Cato's scales rippled with anger and shame. "You gave us no choice. You offered our birthright to these newcomers. Your birthright. The hologram's voice held a note of sadness. The stars belong to no single species. Knowledge belongs to those who will use it wisely. The device pulsed again, gentler this time. The hologram expanded, filling the chamber with images of worlds and species none of them had seen before. There are thousands of developing civilizations in this galaxy alone, the Jansun explained. Some have just discovered fire. Others are reaching for their moons. All have potential. Jiho stepped forward. What happens to them? To us? That depends on choices made now. The hologram replied. It turned to face Jiwoo. Humanity has demonstrated the balance we sought. The capacity for both technological advancement and empathetic understanding. The device shifted again, its form becoming more compact, more elegant, a sphere of swirling light and material that hovered in the air. We designate humanity as caretakers, the Jansun declared, guardians of developing species, guides for those ready to join the galactic community. Jiwoo shook her head. We're not ready for this responsibility. We've barely left our own solar system. No species ever feels ready, the hologram said with what might have been a smile. But the device is chosen. It responds to your neural patterns, your intentions, your balanced perspective. Kato sank to his knees, his anger giving way to despair. What of the Vaxfall? Are we to be subordinate to humans? The Jansun regarded him thoughtfully. That is not our intention. You have much to teach humanity about the stars, about technologies they have yet to discover. We offer you partnership, Jiwoo said, extending her hand to Kato. Not dominance. We can learn from each other. For a long moment, Kato stared at her outstretched hand. The fate of his species hung in the balance. Jiho spoke into the silence. Commander, perhaps this is the evolution our people have needed. Not conquest, but cooperation. Slowly, reluctantly, Kato reached out and took Jiwoo's hand. The Vaxfall do not surrender, he said stiffly. But we can adapt. The device pulsed with approval, its light warming the chamber. The first step is taken, the Jansun hologram said. Now we must prepare you for what comes next. The next few weeks passed in a blur of discovery and negotiation. The Jansun device contained knowledge beyond anything humans or Vaxfall had imagined. Efficient energy sources, medical technologies that could cure almost any disease, faster than light travel systems, more advanced than anything the Vaxfall had developed. But it also contained warnings of species that had destroyed themselves with similar knowledge, of cosmic threats that required cooperation to survive, of the delicate balance needed to advance without self-destruction. When Jiwoo and Hyunbin finally returned to Earth, they brought with them not just the device, but a delegation of Vaxfall scientists led by Jiho. The initial fear and suspicion they met were expected, but the evidence they presented was undeniable. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and now they had responsibilities beyond their own world. 6 months later, Jiwoo stood on the observation deck of the first joint human Vaxfall vessel. The ship, named Harmony, contained technologies from both species, enhanced by knowledge from the Jansun device. Jiho joined her, his scales now a calm blue that indicated contentment. The Council has approved our proposal, he said. We will visit the Meridian system first. Their civilization is approaching spaceflight capability. Jiwoo nodded. Are they ready to know they're not alone? We will observe first, Jiho replied. As the Jansun observed us. When the time is right, we will make contact. They stood in comfortable silence, watching as Earth grew smaller behind them. From enemies to reluctant allies to partners, the journey had been fast but profound. Sometimes I still can't believe it, Jiwoo said softly. That rusty cylinder I found, it changed everything. Not the cylinder, Jiho corrected. What was inside you all along? The balance the Jansun sought. On a table nearby, the transformed device, now a compact sphere of swirling light, pulsed gently, as if in agreement. Back on Earth, Governments still debated the implications of the Jansun legacy. Some feared it, others embraced it. But none could deny that humanity's place in the universe had forever changed. They were no longer just explorers of the cosmos. They were its caretakers, entrusted with knowledge and responsibility beyond their years. And it had all begun with what appeared to be nothing more than a rusty relic. The end